afternoon. Hello. Welcome to Arts, Parks, Libraries, and Entertainment. Today is Tuesday, May 21st. Thank you very much for coming. I'm going to do a roll call very quickly, and then we will move on to our public comment sign up. We do have 2 individuals today, so I am present. Councilmember Cap, probably be here in about 10 minutes. Councilmember Easlick, present. Councilmember Ewing, Councilmember Gadd, present. Councilmember Taylor, Vice Chair Vo. All right, Councilmember Welsh is not present. Okay, so we do have 2 individuals signed up. Our first individual is Heather Lefkowitz, and she is here to speak on BL 2024-343. Ms. Lefkowitz?
Thank you for your support of the Arts Commission. I wanted to speak on BL 2024-343 and to express appreciation for the intent of the bill. My concern is I wonder if it doesn't actually speak to what I'm concerned about in terms of baking in kind of equity to the rules and regulations, so a way to make it more sustainable. For example, our rules and regulations, which we use to make decisions on the awarding of funds, they haven't been updated since 2001. So we don't have any guidelines, and they're very broad, the ones we have. And so I'm wondering, they're not as helpful for us as commissioners or for the community, I think, in making decisions and awarding funds. So as a chronic rule follower, what I would really love is to think about the grant guidelines and distribution of funds and to work together with this committee and council to amend the rules and regulations which guide us. And that would be a first step to help us kind of bake in some of the practices that we're trying to ensure would be sustainable. So again, I am supportive of the intent of the bill, but I would love to have more clarity on rules and regulations for the commission and the community as we try and bake in equitable practices for funding.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Lefkowitz. Thank you very much for coming. Our second individual is Steve Ryder here on Resolution 2024-351. Mr. Ryder?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I've enjoyed working with the sponsor on this, but yesterday before the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, he said he was amending it and essentially that it was a non-binding resolution. And I don't see anything in the amending language here that says anything about a non-binding resolution. To me, it is a resolution. So it's not just asking, it's instructing the various departments to come up with actions, an action plan, and a report. I did contact the Army Corps of Engineers today. I wanted to get a clarification as far as what they have before them. They said they have nothing before them at this point in time. I'm a little bit concerned that some of the stuff that's being talked about, having barriers to access to the riverfront, and I just want to say that I oppose any sort of barrier to access that riverfront. It's a national waterway. Everybody should have access to that. And if I want to go kayaking and I say I want to get to this point, that's on me. If I hurt myself, that's on me. It's not up to Metro government to go out and just say, well, we think for safety and security reasons or whatever else, we're going to put this barrier there. That's not your job. If there's a situation that comes up there, that's the Army Corps of Engineers. I'm a little bit concerned that Channel 4 has been reporting, they just talked about Gay Street. And this covers the entire downtown loop. It's not just Gay Street, because they keep on talking about Mr. Strain. That was over there. This encompasses a broad area, and that is a problem. So the public doesn't know what is actually going to happen. They just think it's just this little area here. That's not what the resolution says. And I called them on that today and said, please go out there and read the resolution, because what you're reporting is not true. It's not just that area there. It's the entire area. So I will be, I've enjoyed working with Mr. Coupin and everything else. We're still working on stuff, and I've asked the Army Corps of Engineers to brief me on some stuff. I know they're doing some stuff with docks and some working with some private groups on things, but they have nothing before them as far as barriers. And I will say, if there is any sort of barrier restricting access, I will take what action I need to remedy that. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you both for being here. At this time, we'll move into our legislation that is before us. And first up is Resolution 2024-351, Coop and Horton Huffman and others, a resolution requesting certain departments of the Metropolitan government to provide a comprehensive analysis of recommended changes to increase the safety, security, housing resources for the unhoused, and cleanliness of the properties surrounding the Cumberland River within the downtown interstate loop. And I know we have discussed this before, but there's also an amendment. The sponsor is joining us today. Thank you, Councilmember Coopin. Would you like to discuss your amendment?
Would love to, and I appreciate Mr. Ryder continuing to ask really deep, hard-hitting questions to get to the granularity of this. So I do appreciate that engagement. I had to check myself to make sure I understood correctly, but the non-binding nature, of course, of the resolution is that as a council body, as you all know, we can't force a department to do something. We can just ask really, really strongly and nicely, and the departments have kindly agreed, and that's part of where the amendment came in, was working with Mr. Rosenberg and his team to clean the language up just a little bit so that all the departments are on board. Planning has stepped in and agreed to be the kind of collector of this plan. I know the question has come up about barriers. Right now, the goal is not to restrict access to the river, quite the opposite. We're working hard to improve access ways via docks and via viewpoints. The one area that we're currently actively looking at along Gay Street Connector is about a 30-foot drop-off. We know of at least 2 individuals who have fallen down that drop-off and injured themselves. So the goal is to enhance the fencing over there, but then clean the brush and make sure it's something that people can use and enjoy, while also looking throughout the rest of the riverfront from housing resources, cleanliness, things like that. So would love for all of y'all's support.
Hello, I jumped right in there and I did not get a motion.
Oh,
I didn't get a second. Second. Okay.
It's one of those days.
Now we'll just go on and discuss. I do have a question. So as we talk about a potential barrier in this area that is dangerous and people have fallen, are we talking about potentially putting something with a gate there? If we're talking about a barrier it's still safety, but it still provides access, to Mr. Ryder's point?
It does. Can I
Sure.
throw Mr. Luckett under the bus?
Please introduce yourself.
Sorry, but I didn't explain it really well.
That's what Kevin said I was here for, go on the bus.
He's done a phenomenal job, by the way. They jumped right into action.
The areas that they're discussing is areas right now that there is a concern because there's a pretty heavy drop-off. I wouldn't let my people go down the bank. It's that bad of a drop-off. So there's concern that there's a 6 to 10 feet off of a greenway that goes down through there that people at night, because it's not lighted as of now, that they could potentially fall down an embankment and get injured. So those are the only parts we're talking about. There would be 3 gates for access for bridges, for NDOT and water to access what they need to. We've met with all of those entities on a couple of different occasions. It would go all the way down to the new Gay Street Park, which is going to remove 2 parking lots that are down there, and we'll turn that into a park. So it'll go from basically Fort Nashville all the way down to Gay Street Park. It will not put anything on the Gay Street Connector Bridge. There's already kind of a railing there. We feel like that's not something that's needed, but it would just really the only part we're fencing off would be something that would be a dangerous section of the bank. You know, there's areas where you can, on both sides, better put in probably kayaking, canoes. In my opinion, I'm not the expert on that, but this area here is just pretty severe. It's what we're talking about right now. I mean, there's plans in the future amongst the Parks Department's been talked about. Once they get funded to turn Wharf Park, and actually part of Wharf Park's plan that I've seen, they said the initial studies was a place for kayaking canoes to be launched from. So that's all in the future. Is there anything on the table right now?
Yes, Councilmember Gadd and then Councilmember Taylor.
Thank you so much, Chair. Thank you so much for being here and for all your work, for all of you working together, and Mr. Ryder also for being engaged on this. Is there a way, do you know, so just visually, fences, and I know their purpose is to ensure keeping
Right.
folks out.
Right.
You know, it is just a concerning kind of visualization in certain areas when you see parts of cities that you go travel to and they're all fenced up. It looks like a military operation. So, you know, if you could address just what you're planning on using. I know this is early in the
Sure.
stages. And then second, of how we're going to engage on community users of the river to get continued input on access points as we're moving forward.
Right. Well, the fence would be, we looked at two different versions. Pretty much right away, everybody decided it's version 1, which was basically just a 4-foot chain link, which looks rough. This would be more something we've used over in sections of the Wentworth Caldwell Park that we've started using. It's a 7-foot steel. The top of it will be angled back toward the city, so it'd be hard to scale if somebody needed to scale it. But it would be more of an ornamental type fencing, but it's steel, so it would be very sturdy. So that would be, I think, a lot of people were concerned. I'm sorry I didn't bring a picture today, but we had pictures we handed out, and everybody agreed that was a much more amenable type of fencing. And as far as no one has done any accessibility studies for the river, because I don't think we've looked at this area as right now really being accessible, and the only gates that we're putting in is for accessibility for maintenance for NDOT and water needs, because and there's some issues of rebuilding parts of the historic, probably 1880s, 1890s historic, feels like wall that's down there that used to be, we think of the old bridge abutment to the old bridge that used to be there a long, long time ago. Some of that needs to be fixed for safety's sake. So we feel like, and there's an old water structure down there that's pretty hazardous that would be fenced off. So as far as access, there's a lot of places to access a river, but we haven't done a study inside of parks to know what those would be. So that's not something we've gone down right now.
Yeah, and I think just it being able to engage the community, and I want to make sure that the other council member has a chance to answer the questions, and I can follow up about that. But thank you so much. That's great.
Yeah, and if I can jump in on that, it's a great question. So you will hopefully hear tonight as well from two members of the community that are very active on the river. I've been engaged with them on riverfront access and advocating for it. We've got Metro Planning is currently working on a study around Riverfront Park and riverfront access. And to be clear, this one section in question, yes, technically it is near the water, but this is not, again, this is not adjacent to the water. This is not a water access point. This is a point where there's a cliff and a landing and a cliff and a landing, and then you get to the water. So this would not be, when I first brought this resolution, I got a couple phone calls that are like, you're fencing the water. No. We're not fencing Riverfront Park. We're not fencing the Cumberland River. This is just a cliffside area. But to your point, it would be this kind of ornamental fence. There would be gate access. The other thing that I've made very clear is that we have people living there right now, and we're not, and we actually, one of the pieces of amendment in the language came from working with Open Table Nashville to make sure that the language said we're not intending to move people from place to place to place, but house and resource and support. So these fences would have gates. This is not, fancy people off. So, yes.
One thing I wanted to add, because you were asking about access, the Action Parks Department right now is going through a process. There was a section of the dock on that side of the river that was torn up by a barge 3 years ago. And we're presently going through the process and planning and getting this engineering plans, and then I got to purchasing of replacing 450 feet of dock down there that's just adjacent to riverfront. So there'll be fire and police boats have access to that. There'll be some private dock stuff down there, but there also should be some general use area for people to put in right down there near Riverfront Park, at least the best of my knowledge at this moment.
Councilmember Taylor.
Thank you. So outside of, I guess I'm getting a bit more on the bill, but outside of the park, who's fiscally responsible for all of the studies and engineering and chain link fences and all the ka-ching that I'm hearing in this conversation? And where do we get that money from?
So
It's us.
well, I can wait a minute. So the request here is reporting right at this point. So it's to gather everyone to come together with what's short-term goals, long-term goals, how much does it cost, who pays for it. At that point, we can make a decision as a body, as departments, what makes sense to go forward with, what doesn't make sense to go forward with, what's fiscally responsible, of course. The only reason that this, again, was a short-term, immediate conversation and still has to come back, I think, before us as a budget request, if they're going to do it, I believe, is because of the more immediate safety issues and the fact that if we wait 6 more months and somebody else falls down that cliff, I mean, I couldn't live with myself. But the overall nature of any other expenditures, riverfront studies, all that, that's obviously a bigger picture question. But the goal of this legislation is to ask for the report to kind of gather that information, make recommendations, and then we can take it from there. I don't know if
Yeah, one of the things, thank you, the resolution asked for is a rundown of what the recommendations would cause if council choose to move forward.
So we don't know who's gonna pay for it? Is that?
There's,
I just want, I'm not being funny, on the record. I mean, I wanna, so, cause there's, I mean, this is gonna cost us some money. A lot of money. And we're looking at a budget right now that's extremely tight. And so we gotta figure out as we move forward in paying for things that are not there, that I don't know if it's our responsibility or whatnot. I mean, it's a waterfront, it's a riverfront. I mean, it's multiple parties, multiple agencies involved in this. But we can't put it all on Metro, is just kind of what I'm trying to get to the bottom line to say is. Because there's a lot of dollars that will be spent here, and we've got to be careful on how we're spending Metro's money.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Taylor. Councilmember Ewing.
Thank you. Okay, so my question relates to the ka-ching part too. You had mentioned when you were describing that dock being destroyed by a barge, an errant barge.
Right.
Did that barge company give us some sort of compensation?
$1
Okay.
million. Metro has put in another 1.5, and that's what we're working with right now to replace as much of the dock as possible. First company went through, won the bid, it all fell through, they backed out, didn't want to do as a design build, so now we're going more traditional route. We're having a company, SSR is a Smith Segment and Reed, who has a lot of dock work and stuff along the Cumberland River in Memphis. So they are presently in design to design a dock that'll work there, and then it'll go to purchasing to be bid, and then we'll do construction to put the dock back there.
And so we've got 2.5 million towards this.
Towards the dock,
And
yes, ma'am.
do we know how much more we need for said dock? This is just a starter?
We hope, when we did the last plan, we were at just over 2 million for the last company to do it. They backed out because they didn't do much dock work, and they got uneasy about it. We're hoping the 2.5 covers it all. If we need to, we're hoping it's not much more than that. If it is more than that, we always have the option of shrinking linear footage of dock space that we do. That would be our last resort, or trying to find more money to finish it off. So that's I don't have a perfect answer for you on that one. That's where we are.
Council members Taylor and Ewing, does that answer a little bit better the question that
Some
you
of
had?
it.
I mean, it's helpful. I just want to be clear that we need to, going into this planning, that needs to be a conversation that we have into the plan. Understand we don't know what it's going to cost, who's going to pay for it, but we need to make sure that we're not on the hook for everything as a city, because I mean, there's much more need than a downtown payment, because I'm sure as we sit around this table and look at the faces that serve many other people that are far away from downtown, they're looking for some support too in their parks and areas.
And these are great questions. I appreciate it. And I've been hoping that we're going to get a separate comprehensive riverfront conversation to look at things like dock space. There's some private companies that have actually offered to come in and invest money for some of those dock spaces, and so I think these are great conversations to have. And just want to make sure, and I think we're clear on it, but just want to make sure for anyone listening that the goal of this resolution doesn't really touch the dock or dock space or investment in downtown dock. This is safety, security. Because we're talking safety, security, we're also talking housing, the individuals that are living there potentially in very unsafe conditions. And then, of course, the trash that's now coming kind of into our waterway and polluting the waterway. So great questions. I want to keep those conversations going, but for anybody, especially those listening at home, making sure that the clarification is there, that this particular document's focused on that lane.
Excellent. Thank you very much for coming today. Are there any other questions before we move on?
I guess the one
Councilmember
thing,
Eastlick.
if I could streamline this a little bit, it would take out the housing resources for the unhoused. I think we've got departments that are working on that already, and if we're truly looking at safety for this area, then that's really not part of that. This is more of just cleaning up that area and maybe not tying up those departments or those resources so that they can go ahead with a plan that they already have or for the resources for the unhoused. And I think it's just out of all the stuff in there, that's kind of a piece that doesn't fit everything else when it comes to safety in that one area.
I'm going to address that.
You may, Councilmember
No,
Cooper.
thank you. Great question. I think that was kind of the desire of myself and also the departments to have them included in the conversation, given that any sort of work in that area would involve interfacing with those people. So the ask is not for them to change their course or change what they're doing, so much as to make sure they're part of the conversation. So Parks doesn't go put up a fence without working with homeless services who may say, hey, don't put that fence up right now because part of our plan is to do something there in 3 years. Maybe you should wait for our plan to, so it's a collaboration type of conversation. Good point.
Any other questions? Okay. With that being said, all in favor of the bill with the amendment on it? Aye. Aye. Any against? Any abstentions? Fantastic. Okay, 7 in favor, 0 against.
Move the bill as amended.
Move the bill as amended.
Second.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Awesome sauce. 7 in favor, 0 against. Next bill is RS 2024-460, approves a grant between the Metropolitan Government and Celebrate Nashville, a 501c3 organization to provide cultural event management services. Anyone here from Celebrate? Okay.
We got a motion and a second.
Did you motion? Oh, thank you for seconding.
Motion, did I second?
He's taking over Jenny's job today.
I know. Usually you two are in it, right?
There's a fight.
I know, usually it's Jenny and
Sorry.
I'm, like, my footing's bad today, I guess.
It's okay. All of our feet are
He's doing
wobbly.
it quietly.
Okay. Moved, seconded.
Yes.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, awesome. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Awesome sauce. 7 in favor, 0 against. Motion passes. Resolution 2024-461 accepts an in-kind grant from the Friends of Warner Park to the Metropolitan Board of Parks and Recreation to fund the purchase and installation of a Metropolitan Historical Commission historical marker on the grounds of the 1811 house in Percy Warner Park. Can I get a motion? Thank you. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? This seems rather straightforward, but if we have any questions, we're good? Okay. So, all in favor? Aye. Awesome sauce. Any opposed? Any abstentions? None? Awesome. Motion passes. 7 in favor, 0 against. Next, RS 2024-462 accepts an in-kind grant from the Friends of Shelby Park in Bottoms to the Metropolitan Board of Parks and Recreation to improve and expand the nature play area in Shelby Bottoms, including the construction of a new pavilion. Was that were your fingers a motion? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Second. Sorry. I had a big mouthful of water. I was like, getting ready.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion passes 7 in favor, 0 against. We move on to bills on second reading. Our first bill is BL 2024-343, Styles, Cupid, Eastlick, and others, amends Chapter 2.112 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws regarding the membership of the Metropolitan Nashville Arts Commission and the process for approving the criteria for awarding funds. Okay. Thank you. Any discussion? And Councilmember Allen is not. I could not see you behind Dave. Okay. Awesome sauce. I was like,
blockage.
What's happening? Okay.
Whole human behind you.
Councilmember Allen, would you like to discuss your amendment with us,
Thank you.
please?
It's just a cleanup that doesn't really change anything, except that there's a whole lot of language in there about people who were nominated in like 1980 that we can do in one simple sentence. So it was just a cleanup, offered as a friendly amendment.
Awesome sauce. I do have a question for you as I was reading it, and maybe I'm just crazy and where did it go? Okay, so the council member, if we appoint them through this committee, then they would serve for 2 years, and that is only while they're on, and if they were to be on their last council term, someone else gets appointed for that second year, starting a new 2-year term, correct? But still appointed through this committee to go to the commission.
So
Okay.
the language simply says if one of the regular members who's serving a 4-year term is filling out someone who resigned early or stopped early, they will go through that and finish out that term. I will defer to Hannah on if the language covers if a council member only did 1 year of a 2-year term, if it was.
So
Okay.
what would happen, like, so say, I'm trying to think kind of where we are currently. So say this passes in a couple weeks and there's a council member appointed. That council member will serve 2 years.
Right.
Then a new council member will be selected. Now that will only really be 1 term.
Right.
That'll cut off, and then the next term it'll be a little bit cleaner, and you'll kind of have, 2 years, 2 years.
Excellent.
Yeah.
It's a friendly amendment. I am happy with it. I can't see Miss Allen. Or Council Member Rosenberg.
Still in the room.
Okay. So I am good with your amendment, and so if you're good
I'll
with
make
it.
a motion if
Yes,
it's a
please, and
friendly
thank you.
Second.
Thank you for the double second. Okay, all in favor to amend the bill. All in favor. Hello, Joy.
As amended.
As amended.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, none of those. Awesome. 7 in favor. 0 against. BL 2024-344, amend section 2.147 of, .030 of the Metropolitan Code regarding the selection of members to the Nashville Music, Film, and Entertainment Commission. Can I get a motion, please?
Move. Second.
Thank you so much. Any discussion? Pretty much the same situation as Metropolitan Arts. It's adding a council member just so we can have a touch point to know what's happening. In the same way we have people that are on planning, we also have someone on short-term rentals, we also have 2 council members that are appointed to the Metropolitan Action Commission Board for 2-year terms. So this is not a new action, not out of the ordinary. Any questions, comments? All right, well, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? 7 in favor, 0 against. Now we have BL 2024-347, an ordinance to provide for the designation of public property within specified areas of downtown Nashville as a temporary special event zone during the time period beginning at 9 o'clock on July 2nd, 2024, and ending at 11:59 p.m. on July 5th, 2024, relative to the use of these areas in conjunction with the 2024 July 4th celebration and related activities and events. Can I get a motion?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? I mean, we do this every year. This is just so we can have our wonderful rah-rah television show. Have you a comment?
Yes, when all the committee members
Oh, okay.
have their opportunity, I would like to ask a question.
Anyone have anything to say on the committee? Okay. Councilmember Allen.
Thank you. This was not on the budget committee, so I didn't get to ask the question there, I don't think. My question is just, who is paying for the overtime for police and parks and things like that?
Do you have, where'd Kevin? Oh, there he
Kevin
is.
over here.
Sorry, what?
This is a
It's
special.
on this July 4th.
Special
There have
event
been years
zone,
when we've been able to
overtime.
get the CBC to pay for that
That's
overtime.
normally who pays for that.
Okay. Do we know?
That's what last year was, so if we have any employees working.
They usually get paid on goal sheet that day. Now, the cleanup, we're talking about July 4th, right?
Yeah.
The cleanup 2 days afterwards that we do across the street, we let everybody get all their stuff out of there first, and then Parks is involved in cleaning up around the stadium for all the fireworks stuff. That's usually done on normal time.
Normal time, okay. Does that answer your
So we
question?
think the CVC is paying for whatever overtime
If we're doing
Parks and
overtime, right.
NDOT is, and, okay.
Awesome sauce. Thank you, Councilmember Allen. Any other questions, committee? Okay, with that, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All righty, another one passing. 7 in favor, 0 against. That concludes our, legislation portion.
Chair,
But yes, Councilmember
So-
Gadd.
on BL 2024-343, I wanted to be able to ask a question.
Oh, what did you ask a
I
question?
know,
Okay.
everything coming through, and I was like, well, I don't want to interrupt the flow, but also my question, I don't need it to, I don't feel compelled to re-refer, or recall it to be re-voted on.
Okay.
But I didn't know if I could ask a question before we move on.
By all means,
if
go
we have
ahead.
time. I just wanted to, so this one, I just want to understand more about the process for what we're doing to review the funding. Like, is council?
You're asking about Metro Arts,
Yeah.
which I think is a separate question than what we're talking about now, because we want to put to put a council member.
That is in the legislation.
Yeah, that's in the legislation, so I just
So
wanted, if I can get an explanation and,
What we would be doing to go over there, or?
well, specifically, I'm just trying to understand, I know we're adding, I'm just trying to understand what the council will be approving on.
So
For the
we
fund.
wouldn't have voting power. We would be there, we would be present for conversations and also be present for input in the same way that we are for the other boards that I mentioned. So if we're sitting in on a MAC board meeting, we also get a chance to have, are you
I
waving a
think
finger?
that, just to clarify, I think her question is not on the part of the council member being
Right.
added, but the second part about the
second
council,
aspect
this
of-
committee reviewing
Oh,
the
the
criteria.
that one, okay.
I'm fully, thank you, yeah, because, and I apologize
it,
for not
yes.
clarifying that, because I wasn't
Point
clear.
of clarification,
Yeah.
point of clarification.
Okay.
Could we have legal kind of give a synopsis to answer this question?
Of the change, or could you
Yeah.
repeat your question?
Yeah, so I basically just want to understand, so I'm very clear on adding a council member to the commission. I think that's done in other areas, and it makes a lot of sense. The second part, I would like, if you could just describe exactly what that second part of and that may be more helpful to
I'm
me.
gonna pull up the analysis while we talk about it so I can refer to it. But, so currently, there is language in the ordinance regulating the Arts Commission that gives the council the authority to review the criteria. State law has preempted other parts of that section, which gives the council the authority to approve the grants. Under state law, they have the authority to appropriate grants to organizations without specific council approval. So that language is being removed. So this would keep and tweak some of the language that's currently in there about council approval of criteria related to the grants. But what the bill does is it would basically be an annual approval by council of the criteria that the Arts Commission is using to appropriate grant funding to organizations.
And this came out because of the previous legislation that existed that we have not seen on this body, not this term, nor last term, that used to come before us where we would approve the grant funding going to Metro Arts. I am waiting to find out when we stopped doing that and why we stopped doing it. So now this becomes an ordinance, and then every year they would come so we would know what their grant process is, and if we have questions, comments, concerns about it, then we would be able to say, hey, this seems confusing or whatnot, and give feedback, and they could tweak it.
And so we want to do that in that way rather than just a report and approval,
Yes, because of what has been going on right now, because no one has been at the table, no one has been able to ask questions and get answers in real time, and by being present, we do have a better
And
opportunity
may I
of
ask
doing
one more
that.
question on when it goes into effect? Will it impact the current funding cycle?
I'm not sure where the Arts Commission is in the current funding cycle, but this would be effective upon
Adoption.
council approval and signature of the mayor.
I'm just curious if it will delay
It shouldn't. It's just about us being able, we would then have someone that would be a part of the commission to be a part of whatever conversations they're having. We're not going in to stop anything, change anything, because I believe they are, and I'm going to let Interim Director Coleman speak to this, they are in the midst of doing the grant 25 process, so we wouldn't be coming in to mess with it. We'd just be there.
Not exactly correct. I'm Paulette Coleman. I'm the interim executive director of the Metro Nashville Arts Commission. This is my 4th day, and the highest priority is closing out and distributing money to FY24 grantees. That's the highest priority. Metro Finance is working assiduously on that and basically do reports almost by hour in terms of where they are. The commission and myself, because of everything that has transpired, do not want to stack on another level of grant funding without clarification and understanding of the process in terms of metrics, rubrics, guidelines, etc. Has not been approved, we need bandwidth to assess that and to make some determinations. And I can't give you a timeline at this moment. I do know that other departments within Metro are supportive of the idea, but we know it can't take forever. And there has to be an effective outreach and communications plan so that artists, arts organizations, taxpayers, citizens can all be comfortable that the process will proceed in a transparent, fair, and equitable means. I'm sorry I can't be more specific, but I told you what the highest priority is, and then working on systems and processes that make it possible for this process to flow as it should, and as it has in many years past.
Interim Director Coleman, thank you very much for coming today and sharing that update. It was very helpful.
I didn't even know about the meeting, but Brian Sexton from the mayor's office says it's his job to let people know. And then our commissioner, Lefkowitz, did, so thank you, and I'm happy to be here. Sorry I was late, but, traffic is not under my control.
No worries.
Vote in November.
You shared what you needed to share. Thank you.
So when this is adopted and passes, it won't slow up anything that they're doing. We don't.
That's not the intention.
I was just saying,
I know it's not
I can't speak to
I'm just trying to
that.
think legally once we start. So I can ask that question later too. I'm just curious. That's my only concern is when you start adding, additional layer for processes for approval. That does impact timelines. But thank you.
We aren't
for the
going there to
additional time.
create something separate for just us. We're going there to be a part of what already exists. So therefore, we wouldn't hem it up. We'd just be joining what exists.
I understand the intention. I'm just making sure on the application with how it's written. So thank you for the additional time. I mean, we could unintentionally impact, the thing that we don't want to impact with the release of funds. So.
We have the commission chair and budget chair for the Nashville Music, Film, and Entertainment Commission that have been waiting very patiently to present their budget requests. And actually, I got them out for you.
Great. Well, this is a little bit of an updated one. Yes.
Okay.
Let me give you the breaking news.
The breaking news, okay.
Go for it. Okay. I'm Stephanie Silverman. This is my colleague, Max Butler, who is the chair of this commission. I've been working on the budget process with our fine group of commissioners. First of all, I just want to thank all of you who were involved with standing this commission up. I think it's really exciting for this community, and I think there's tremendous work to be done, and we've spent the last little bit putting a lot of ducks in a row so that we can begin to really do that work. Bylaws are there, job descriptions are written, there's a lot of process that has been finished so that we are sort of ready to begin sort of the next iteration of this work. I realize the standing up of this commission and the timing of this fiscal year's challenges are tricky. So we're a little bit breaking the rules and asking for a little bit more money. But what we're proposing here is what we're calling our lean budget. We went through 3 scenarios, a mid-size, an ideal, but we recognize that this is where this would put us in good stead. This would get us stood up. The primary expense you'll see on this budget is personnel, because personnel is the engine that makes all things move forward. So we know that $100,000 is what existed in the budget last year, so we assume that would move forward. We know that about 98,000, 90,000, something like that, was not spent last year. So I know it doesn't carry over, but just for some context. So, what essentially we're asking for is an additional 150, really to populate this staff, give them a small budget to begin to move forward with some software infrastructure and some other elements that allow them to start communicating with artists both locally and nationwide, and allow the work to move past the volunteer commissioner stage into really the professional, city-driven portion of its life.
Okay.
And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Me too.
Anyone have any questions? I know we started working on the budget wish list at our last meeting. We also had our list of priorities for this entire year. This was one of the items on our list of priorities. So I'm Vice Chair vote.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Just looking at like what was proposed to us and then this latest, we are looking at 1.4% savings that we've asked everybody. So, even looking at this, are y'all willing, if we have to look at this and downsize, if we have to remove the administrative coordinator, is that something?
Of course we're willing. Just in terms of efficacy and reality, I think we all know if you put one person in an office, it's a tricky way to get any momentum. But we also understand where the city is, so we're trying to set up the most ideal, least ideal scenario, basically. So we already understand that you guys are in a tough position this year, and so we're just trying to be realistic, but pragmatic at the same time.
In looking at this as well, in the professional and purchase services, I see Real Scout. Are these also inclusive of new permitting software as well?
So that's sort of where the other expense is sitting right now, because there was conversation about maybe tying into this new system the city has, but we know that there are better built systems that are already working in communities, Atlanta being the model, really. So I think that's the kind of exploration that a staff can do in partnership with the commission, but we want to set up the most efficient system so that we are out of the gate and moving quickly, and departments are connected, and filmmakers and music producers and all of the entities that would touch that are engaged and activated easily. So yes, so I think it's all within that, the Real Scout plus other, yes.
Okay, Councilmember Gadd and then Vice Chair vote.
Thank you so much for this, and thank you, Councilmember Vo, for making sure I'm on the right pages. So you do, I know in the last conversation of why we're here too, being able to hire the executive director, having a salary fitting for that, to make that higher. So we feel confident or more comfortable with this amount that's presented on, because you've got the number shortened from budget.
From the ideal.
AD, and so you still feel like you can get the ED hired with this amount? I just wanted to confirm.
Yeah, I'll speak to that.
it was a
Obviously
big
it'd be great if
conversation
we
the
had
last
all the
time we
money,
were here.
but we don't. So, if we had more, we'd be able to hire whoever we wanted, right? This will give us a person that we could get for that much, right? It's not quite the same, but it's something.
It's a reasonable starting salary for something that's essentially a startup. What you're not asking someone to come in to do is run a $5 million, $10 million metro department. They really are building so you want someone with expertise and entrepreneurial spirit, but it's a little bit of a different beast. So based on salaries that I pay people, based on salaries that we know people are making in our field, it seems workable. Well, again, not ideal, but a starting point.
And I would say that having created the office that this new executive director will be over, that was created 2 years ago, and nothing happened last year. And so this commission has been very stuck because $100,000 was not enough to hire an executive director. And so we need to have more to hire a director. And certainly my concern has been in the last 2 years is it is a really heavy lift to start a brand new office and then to ask someone to come in for peanuts, and they're also doing support staff work and trying to be front facing.
Yeah, because they're going to have to handle, I mean, if we're asking to lower that budget, they're going to be the administrative coordinator as well.
They're going to be everything,
right?
and trying to
So
get
just
platforms up and all of that.
Just
So
wanted to check.
I think that is where you're coming from saying we gave the lowest, but now we realize we probably need to have a support staff there too, so we can set up a department to try and function fully, at least to get started. And I think traditionally, and if you haven't seen it yet, you'll see it, where we throw $3 at something to say, we're supporting it, but we're not really supporting it if we're only giving it $3 and expecting it to flourish. There's just no way to do that. So if we're gonna get this office off the ground, I think we do need to give it a fair shot, and that's not to cripple it out of the gate. Yes?
Yeah, and I'll just say again, if we wanted to go out and hire like the best person in the country for this position, it would be more. Right. And that would be something that would be great to do as a starting point. Starting off and like hiring a part-time person as like, that's what you can do with $100,000, right? That's such a downer for everybody in the community, really. It's kind of like, oh, we've done this, and we're gonna have like a 20-hour-a-week person. I mean, we're Music City, right? This is the Music, Film, and Entertainment Office. So, I mean, ideally, it'd be 150 plus benefits. But,
thank you. I just wanted to make sure that with the initial scope of starting the office, that this amount is something that you all feel good about.
I think it's a call that we could put out respectfully and that people would at least look at.
Yeah.
And with the understanding that there's opportunity here also. This is a startup at this point, and there is growth potential, hopefully.
Thank you.
Thank you both very much. Oh, I'm sorry, Vice Chair Vo.
Yeah, just last question. Can y'all speak to what the $16,000 of other expenses, like what?
Look, because this is such a new thing, right? I put that in there to be maybe the permitting software, maybe it's meant to be flexible because it feels to me like it should be executive director driven decision making. And we didn't want to tie the hands of the staff that we were bringing in with really tight budget lines that didn't give them the flexibility to do something with the relatively small amount of money that's there.
It's just so that when we're discussing it in our workshop, we're going to ask, and then if they can't have explanation, they're going to say, well, we don't need this. So that's more why I'm trying to understand.
What I anticipate that money going for, if we looked at something like Atlanta system that is very much a system that's connected to all their metro departments, it just gets everything done, it's really nice and clean, and it's built right now, it's not built in the future. I think between Real Scout and that, we're looking at about $20,000, right? So there's $4,000 in that first line, and then that $16,000 that's flexible. If it's helpful, we could be more specific about it, but that was sort of the intent.
And for reference, that Real Scout, just so you know what it is, the state uses Real Scout, and Memphis uses their system for a small amount. Knoxville uses their system, and I think maybe Chattanooga too.
Yeah.
So this would just be a small amount of money that we'd have to pay instead of like starting up from scratch. And we'd get our own website version of that.
Yeah.
And that's for finding locations, crew, vendors, something we don't have in Nashville.
Yes, Ms. Seidman.
Once you guys are done with the Entertainment Commission, I'd like to be recognized.
Oh, okay. Are there any other questions for Ms. Silverman or Mr. Butler in regards to the budget they've presented?
No, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Both for coming. Did you want to say something before I?
Yes,
hit my
before you
next?
adjourn. I just wanted to say on the record, because I misspoke at the last meeting, I spoke without authority about the committees and their wish lists. So we are not doing committee-based wish lists this year. You can all submit your own wish lists, but the committee will not be submitting one on behalf of the committee.
So, the conversation that I had yesterday was totally different with Ms. Darby. So could I just ask this question?
So Director Darby, this is from her. I can read her statement if you'd like.
You please read that statement
Yes.
because that is not what she told me
The non-budget
yesterday.
and finance committee should not be making wish list requests. Rather, each member can make their own wish list request to submit for consideration by the budget and finance committee and chair.
Awesome. So can I flesh out the conversation that I had with her yesterday about that, which was there has been confusion because caucuses have done wish lists, and then what has happened is individuals have given their wish lists. Can I let me, because I just want to be sure you all hear this. We have individual wish lists, and in the past we have done caucus wish lists, so like women's caucus, minority caucus, and submitted them. When I had my conversation with Darby yesterday, she referenced confusion because what has happened is sometimes there's a caucus that gives a wish list, and then when people submitted their individual wish list, they didn't include things that were on the caucus wish list, so it looked like they weren't supportive. That's what she told me yesterday.
I think that might be a misunderstanding. If I could clarify that, I think that the real confusion is that people will sign on to a minority caucus wish list, but then submit their own item that is tweaked from what the caucus has submitted.
Well, there was both.
So less money or more money or something
Or they
additional.
didn't put it on there, so that happened too, so both.
That might be true, but I think that the real confusion that we're concerned with is the members of a caucus signing on to a request that then the individual caucus members or committee members would then tweak in some way. It's just cleaner for everybody to submit their own wish list, and then that way we know, okay, these committee members are for this, but it's not got the name of the actual committee attached to it. It just has your individual names.
Which will then make it more difficult when we get to the budget Hunger Games next week. If we've agreed as a group that we want to support something, and then individually we have to then hope that you show up. Because the thing, it's like some raffles must be present to win. So if there's an item for you that you want to fight for as a council member, if you're not there to fight for it and you don't have enough support to go with it, that's going right out the window. And you'll come to council and be like, well, what happened to my item? You weren't there to fight for it. So all of this came about because I dared to do something that no one's ever done before. Look at that, shocking. And so in doing that raised questions about can we do it.
And
But
I will say, part of the confusion that I will just admit to,
like something set or we won't be able to get it done.
I think that this was all changing and I just wasn't aware of it. So I spoke out of turn last meeting and I apologize for
That's fine, because Darby, like I said, she just told me all of these thoughts yesterday, and my pushback was, so then what do we do? Because if we have, not all of us are going to be at every budget work group. That much is going to be true. So if we've said, like we did at the last committee meeting, that we had the items that we wanted, then now to be sure that we have them on the same wish list, then how do we make sure that they're on the same wish list? Because we have to do it here, right? We agreed at the last meeting, so if we can't submit just one sheet that has it on there, because one thing she suggested yesterday was perhaps, oh, well, if a group submits it, then we have to have the names of the people that said, yes, they were okay to submit it as a group.
Well, and not to submit as a group, but you could submit it as a group, but not as the group submission, but as each individual listed members wish list item. Does that make sense? Does that distinction make sense? It wouldn't be the committee's wish list, it would be these 5 committee members.
No, that didn't make any clearer for me, but that's what I told Darby yesterday too. But it's okay. Before we get to, we have council tonight, so I'll ask my questions. I just want to be sure that if we're fighting, like as this committee has parks, arts, libraries, and they've come before us and they have asked us for specific things, and we have said we want to support them, to be sure that those things make it on all of our wish lists. Right. The easiest way is, here's the committee wish list. I hear where the confusion is, I understand it, but in order to make sure that what we're trying to fight for gets fought for,
And another concern has been kind of the tripling of things. So an individual submit it, a committee will submit it, a caucus will submit it, another caucus will submit it. And so you've got that same item 4 times with 4 different names under it. I mean, if it's individual council members, fine, totally fine. But when you start kind of stacking these different groups together, it just creates this administrative burden because we have to go through all this paperwork. We have to make sure that they're all correct, and then we have these duplications, which oftentimes somebody will say, actually, that's not the amount that I'm wanting, even though I voted for it in this meeting.
So I just have visions of like council floor and questions and a wish list in my hand. Okay, that works. And then everybody who's good with it is good with it.
due to
Thursday.
the chair.
It's due to our office.
Their office.
Yes, Maria called her this Thursday, the 23rd.
Day after tomorrow.
4 p.m.
I think 4. I'll double check the time. Yes, just submit it by noon to be safe.
I thought it was
That's
Friday.
because something came out and said Friday.
They said the 23rd.
There is something that said Friday, because I'm not the only one.
The wish list sheet says Thursday.
I feel like an email said Friday, but it's okay, it doesn't matter, we'll have it in. Easily? No, sir. No, sir.
And if you get it in Wednesday, it's before the deadline.
So you just put things in his calendar to finish them early.
That's unlike me to be early, but that's fine.
Is it close of business Thursday?
I'll just see all of you at some point tonight with a wish list. That's what's gonna happen.
It is in the wish, it is on the wish list.
Not later tonight?
The first sheet of the wish list has the information.
Okay, so we have 1 minute before Bradford is gonna
Russ
come
is gonna
in.
be upset if you make it
Exactly.
late.
So can I get a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Motion
to delay.
Okay, we are adjourned. Sir? We are adjourned.
So moved.